I'm Dustin Abbott, and I'm here just to give you a look into what I dropped from my own personal kit and added to my personal kit in 2016. Now, of course, I have a tremendous amount of gear that comes through my hands throughout the course of any given year. And the way that most of that gear works is that it's loaned to me typically by manufacturers, sometimes by retailers, and then in many cases I'll return it back to them after I'm done reviewing. And so obviously anytime that I'm reviewing a new piece of gear, I have to deal with my own instincts of acquisition and just really make decisions based on what I actually need in my kit. I try to keep a fairly good-sized kit for one reason is that I like to have some kind of comparison point, a point of reference when I have new lenses coming in. And I also do a pretty big variety of photography myself for my own business. Everything from product photography for companies. I do fine art type prints, landscapes. I do portrait work. I do event work. I do some weddings. I don't actually advertise for portraits and weddings. I just kind of get them through word of mouth. And then also I do travel-based photography and then of course gear related. And so there's a lot of different things that I do. So you kind of need different equipment for different kinds of pursuits. Now obviously I reviewed a lot of great gear in 2016. These last 2 years have been a really strong period for lenses and for cameras, gear of all kinds. But there are certain things that I've elected to add to my own kit. Now, before I actually begin to talk about specifics, let me say that this does not necessarily represent the best things that I have reviewed in the last couple of years. I always have to evaluate what I actually need in my kit. And so just because I'm reviewing something fantastic doesn't mean that I actually need it. And so I try to be realistic about what I actually need in my kit. And secondly, of course, like many of you, I have a limited budget of at least what I'm willing to spend. And I try to operate my photography business where I'm not necessarily generating a huge profit, but at the same time, I certainly don't want to be running in the negative just because I can't resist buying all the gear out there. So there's a balance, and I think all of you know what that is all about. So let's talk first about what I dropped from my kit in 2016, and you'll see the reasons for that in part when I go through what I added to my kit. So the first thing that I dropped, or one of the things I dropped in 2016 is one of my Canon 6D full-frame bodies. I've really loved these 6D bodies, and I still think that they offer fantastic image quality. I still have one, and it's the one that I have specifically set up for use with manual focus glass. Not to say that I don't use autofocus lenses on it, but it's the one that is the most convenient way to use manual focus glass on a full-frame DSLR for me. And so I'll probably hang on to that until it dies on me. And I still am impressed with the kind of images I can get out of the Canon 6D. I also just recently parted with a lens that I've really liked, and that was the Canon 35mm f2.IS. And while I loved it a lot, there was a lens that I loved even more that I'll mention in just a moment. I also let go another beloved lens, the Canon 135mm f2L. And I mostly let it go in that while I love the lens, I just am not reaching for it all that much. And I don't know that it's because I've moved away from the 135mm focal length. Sometimes you go through phases, or at least I do as a photographer, when I think more in certain focal lengths, and as a result there are some focal lengths that don't get touched as often. And I just found that even in portrait situations I wasn't reaching for it as much. I reached for an 85mm, sometimes for a 100mm lens, and then sometimes a 70 to 200 zoom just for the versatility. And so I just wasn't using it enough, and it was kind of collecting dust, and so I let it go and I sold it this year. I also recently sold the Canon EOS M3 body. And then finally I let go the Canon Extender 1.4X, the Mark II, which I've had for a number of years. And the reason for that, again, will quickly be explanatory. So this year I replaced one of those 6D bodies with a 5D Mark IV, which has kind of become my primary test body and day-to-day user. And so I'm still kind of making a decision as to whether or not I'll invest in two 5D Mark IV bodies, or I'll see what the 6D Mark II has when it comes to market. And I'm still kicking around the possibility of adding a 5D SR for those situations where I just want maximum resolution, or I really want to kind of tweak a lens with maximum resolution. I also added a Canon 80D to my kit this year. After reviewing it, I just found that it was such a versatile performer, just pretty good at everything. And it is, for me at least, it's my favorite APS-C DSLR that Canon has ever made. It just does everything quite well. I am evaluating right now the new Canon EOS M5, and I sold the EOS M3 with bearing in mind either going for it or potentially something like a Sony a6500. So far, I really like the M5 in terms of its handling and its features. And I think the bottom line for me is that if it had 4K decently implemented, it would be a no-brainer. The fact that it is limited at 1080p is the one thing that's making me consider the A6500, even though ergonomically the M5 is the superior camera. I'll get back to you on what decision I make on that. It looks like that's a decision that will get pushed into 2017 anyway. I mentioned I sold the 35 f2 IS, a lens that I loved, but when I reviewed last year, about a year ago, I reviewed the new Canon 35mm f1.4 L Mark II, and it is a superb lens, and I loved it, but it was and is incredibly expensive. A year later, I'm able to negotiate a little bit better price, and while it's still expensive, I have been, kind of aching to add that lens to my kit ever since the moment that I used it. And so I've just now added that to my kit, and I'm looking forward to using that for everything, event works to portraits, and it's just a beautiful lens. I also added the Tamron 85mm f1.8 VC this year, and when I reviewed that lens, I just really liked the mixture of its size, image stabilizer, image quality, just the whole package. It's not perfect, but I liked it well enough that I added it to my kit, and I've been very happy with it. Now, the new Sigma 85 art lens that I just reviewed is also incredible, and in terms of outright resolution, it's even more incredible than what the Tamron is. It's also a beast of a lens, however, and nearly a good 40% larger than what the Tamron is. And I just don't know that I want a prime lens that is that huge. And if it had just really blown away the Tamron in every category, I still might have considered it. But there is some give and take, and those of you that have followed my coverage of the Sigma know that while I think at the end of the day the Sigma is probably the better lens overall, it's not necessarily the better lens for me in the way that I'm going to use it. And so I've been very happy with the Tamron. It focuses fantastic for me, and I use it in a lot of event settings, and it's been very reliable. And so anyway, I've been happy with that. I also added the little Voigtlander 20mm f3.5 pancake lens. Now this is somewhat unusual for me in that it's rare that I add a lens to my kit that is not supremely sharp, and that's something that I certainly value. However, the Voigtlander is such an attractive package, and it has beautiful color rendition, and it's very much like a Zeiss lens, except for in a very compact package. And so I find that stopped down to typical landscape apertures f8, that it's sharp enough, and I'm happy with the results that I get out of it. But it's so convenient to bring along when I potentially might shoot a wide-angle focal length, but I'm primarily shooting telephoto or some other focal length. And so I love that I can throw it even into a pocket or into a little bag and bring it along. And if I don't shoot it that day, it's small enough that I don't feel bad for having carried it around. I also replaced the Canon Extender Mark II, 1.4x Mark II with the 1.4x Mark III. And specifically because a lot of the f8 autofocus in the new bodies, such as the Canon 80D and the 5D Mark IV, some of the full potential is required. You need to have the Mark III extender to unlock that. And so I use the combination with the 100 to 400L Mark II and an extender quite often. And I elected to go with that a while back instead of one of the 150 to 600 millimeter variants. And so I use the extender when I want that little bit of extra reach, and I'm really happy with the results that I get. Right now, on my set, I'm using new lighting that came from the company Impact. These are the Octacool 6 lights, and I really like them. And then also I've got a number of Impact backdrops that I use on my set, and they're just really nicely made, very durable, and so they're working well for me. You also saw me review the Ruggard Thunderhead backpack, and I'm really liking that backpack just for, sometimes it's even just transporting gear from my studio back to my office. Just, you know, it's just really great that you can put so much gear into it, and instead of making multiple trips, I can make one trip just loaded down in that big backpack. And so, anyway, it's been great. I haven't reviewed it yet, but those of you that looked at my traveling light video know that I am just about to leave on an extended trip to the American Southwest, and I will be using as my primary bag on that trip the Vanguard Heralder 51T, and it's a rolling backpack, got a handle and 4 wheels underneath, so it should be a great airport and travel type backpack, and so I'm looking forward to using it for that. I'm also added the Oben CT3535. This is a portable or travel carbon fiber tripod, something I didn't have, and so I haven't reviewed it yet, but so far I'm enjoying using it, and I'm very happy with it as an addition. Now, I haven't shared much footage from it yet, but we also just added a DJI Phantom 3 drone to the kit for just adding some aerial footage here and there. And then finally, you did see me review the Jiuang Crane motorized gimbal, handheld gimbal, and I'm really loving that just for adding different kind of looks, different shots to supplement kind of B-roll footage on my reviews. And so there you have it. Actually, for me, that's a lot of stuff to have added in 1 year, and part of it is just because we were on that cycle where a lot of the new bodies were coming around. So next year I probably won't add as many new things to my kit, but at the same time, it was a year of transition for me. So there you have the things that I dropped from my kit and I added to my kit in 2016. I'm looking forward to 2017 and what it has to offer. I want to thank all of you who are subscribers and viewers and have helped my channel to really grow significantly this year, and I am looking forward to hopefully even higher heights for it in 2017. So thanks again for your support. Thanks for watching. If you haven't already, please click that subscribe button. Thanks for watching. Have a great day.